Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another class for Standard 10. The chapter is Life Processes. Today we will study the human respiratory system. But before we begin, let us do a quick revision of what we studied in the last class. So we studied the different types of respiration in the last class basis of difference. There were two different bases. One is on the absence and presence of oxygen, and other was based on the organ which was being involved in the respiration. So on the presence and absence of oxygen, we have two different types of respiration. One is aerobic respiration, other is anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration is a kind of respiration where we have large amount of oxygen present, and in case of anaerobic respiration, the amount of oxygen present is either very less or absence, oxygen is not present there. If oxygen is present, complete oxidation of glucose takes place, but in case of anaerobic respiration, incomplete oxidation of glucose takes place. If incomplete oxidation of glucose takes place, that means more energy is being released. So more energy is released in aerobic respiration, less amount of energy is released in anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration takes place in cytoplasm and mitochondria both. That means some part of respiration takes place in cytoplasm and some part in mitochondria. But in case of anaerobic respiration, the whole this respiration takes place in the cytoplasm, and the end product of aerobic respiration is CO2 and H2O, whereas end product of anaerobic respiration is, in case of yeast and bacteria, it is ethyl alcohol and CO2. In case of muscle cell, it is lactic acid. On the basis of the organ involved in respiration, we again have four types of respiration. One is cutaneous, where skin is involved in respiration. The other is tracheal, where trachea is involved in respiration. The third one is bronchial, where gills are involved in respiration. And the fourth one is pulmonary, where lungs are involved in respiration. We had studied this in the last class itself. Today we will see the human respiratory system. In case of human respiratory system, we begin with nose. I will have to change the color of this. So from nose, the air passes through the nasal chamber. From nasal chamber, it passes through different parts of pharynx, and besides this, we also have larynx. Larynx is not a part of respiration, not taking part in respiration, but air passes through this also. Then we have trachea. From trachea, air goes to bronchus. From bronchus, it is further divided into smaller branches, which is known as bronchioles. And finally, the balloon-like structure present at the end of the bronchiole, known as alveoli. This is the passage of air in our body. So when it passes through nasal chamber, what happens? We have hair and mucus in this area, and they try to filter the air that is getting inside our body. That means small dust particles, germs, they all may stick to the mucus, and thus air. This also protects the inner layer of the nose from getting damaged because of air getting inside our body. So dust particles, germs, these are all trapped by the mucus, and hair also helps in filtering the air. So what is it trying to do? It is trying to give us the pure air, so that our body is not damaged with the dust particles or germs that is getting inside the through the air. From nasal chamber, it goes into the pharyngeal chambers, and then it goes to the trachea. Trachea is a tube which is supported by rings of cartilage, and these rings of cartilage, they help the trachea or prevent the trachea from collapsing. What is the role of this rings of cartilage? They prevent the trachea from collapsing. Now what happens? From trachea, it is divided into two different parts, that is known as bronchus, and each part goes into the lungs. Inside the lungs, bronchus is further divided into bronchioles, and at the end of it we have the alveoli, where exchange of gases will takes place. So exchange of gases takes place at alveoli. And what are the different things required for exchange of gases to take place? It should have a very thin membrane, so proper diffusion can take place. Another one is it should have large surface area, and for having large surface area, this is highly coiled structure. And the third one is it should be richly supplied with blood vessel. So this is richly supplied with blood vessel. Why is it richly supplied with blood vessel? Because exchange is taking place between blood and the alveoli. So this is all about the passage of air and where exchange of air takes place. Now this is the human respiratory system. If you look at air, let me change the color. Air goes through the nasal chamber, it passes through this trachea, pharyngeal part of the body, and then trachea, and it reaches the trachea. This is surrounded by, you can see, a ring of cartilage that protects the trachea from collapsing. Some air is always present inside the trachea because of these rings of cartilage. This trachea is divided into one on this side and one on the other side, which is known as bronchi, and bronchi is further divided into, you can see these branches, which are known as bronchioles. These are, let me write the name, bronchioles. And at the end of these bronchioles, we have balloon-like structure which is known as alveoli. Yes, you can see it over here. This is the bronchiole, and at the end of it we have balloon-like structure, rounded structure, which is known as alveoli, and this is richly supplied with blood vessel because exchange of gases has to take place over here. This is very thin, it has very thin membrane, and it is a highly coiled structure to increase the surface area for exchange of gases. If you look at this structure, this is a structure which separates our body into two different parts. The upper part is known as thoracic cavity and the lower part is known as abdominal cavity. So diaphragm separates our body into two parts. Upper part is known as thoracic cavity and the lower part is known as abdominal cavity. And if you look at the structure, because heart is situated slightly towards the left, this left lung is comparatively smaller than the right lung, and it has only two lobes. Because this is bigger, it has three lobes, upper, middle and the lower lobe. This is the lower lobe, this is the middle, this is the upper lobe. So right lung is slightly bigger than the left lung. Why is it bigger? Because heart is situated towards the left side. So left lung is slightly smaller than the right lung. Structure which separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity is known as diaphragm. So this is all about the respiratory system. Tomorrow we will study the mechanism of exchange of gases and how carbon dioxide and oxygen is transported in our body. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, do share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe the channel and click on the bell icon to get the notification whenever a new video is released. Thank you once again.